at whatever daily meeting or pre-route thing that the company has for the driver. They make them do this, right? So it's twofold. One, the company is saying, hey, we want you to be honest with this, but two, there's also that personal responsibility from the driver saying, hey, I need to be honest about what's going on with me, and there should be some kind of no fault response if maybe you are red, right? And there should be some contingencies, right? So because I don't want to send me as a manager, I don't want to send a driver out there that is has a whole bunch of shit going on in his life and he's not concentrated on doing the best job, right? So you just run through the list, right? I talked about sleep, right? Like sleep is the most important aspect of anything that we do. There's been studies out there that show if people get less than 5 hours of sleep, then that is the equivalent, and they're driving. That's the equivalent of them being intoxicated, right? Um, Route knowledge, right? Like I think to me, route knowledge is a big thing. Sure, we have all these fancy gizmos and whatnot, but I've never driven a route where I didn't have a paper copy, right? And I'm trying to figure it out as I go along, right? Like that's still prevalent in the industry. So the more route knowledge you have, then you know where you're going and you're not having to like figure things out as you're going along, right? So that should be a factor in this. Experience. How experienced are you in the particular truck and route that you're driving, right? Front load, ASL, roll off, right? Because every truck type has its quirks, right? So that should be a factor in it. Years, experience. How many years have you been driving a truck with CDL, right? Stress, personal judgment, right? Um, Alex, I saw an episode where you guys were talking about mental health. Like that is a huge thing, right? Like, even though it's not necessarily affecting me, I'm married. My wife has OCD. Like a lot of stuff that she's going on. Like this last Christmas break has been, uh, you know, really fucking shitty for us because I have a 3 year old, and 3 days before Christmas, he ends up choking on something, and I'm having to give my son, my 3 year old, CPR until waiting for the paramedics to show up. Right, like that takes a mental toll on you. And then a couple days after Christmas, my wife finds out that her sister has lung cancer. So just dealing with those kind of stresses, like even if you're like, no, I'm fine, I got it. As you're driving, we've all done it. You're a person alone in a truck. You're kind of your own boss, but you're driving around, and the thoughts start happening. You're like, what am I gonna do for dinner? You're like, what's going on? Like just and that can cause stress. And guess what? That also distracts you, right? So, and then a big part of that is how many hours have I worked in the last 5 days, right? Like overtime. Overtime is awesome because guess what? That's more money in my pocket, right? More money that I can provide for my family. But if you're working, you come to like hour 50 in a 5 week period, you you start to get tired, so things like this, if it's implemented, and I think this is something that the nationals can really take a part of. And I wrote this article like what 3 4 years ago, right? But just how we think about things from a driver perspective, where the management is not our enemy, right? Because how many drivers have you heard in the various Facebook groups? You're like, oh, managers suck. Oh, just all of them, right? I left all of them because I was like, dude, it's just a bitch fest. I don't need that kind of bullshit in my life, right? But you know, a lot of the nationals, they look at, oh, I'm going to hire people in management positions that have the degree. They don't have the experience. I'd rather have somebody the experience that has gone out there and done it, especially coming from a military background. If I go ask an airman to, hey, I need you to go do X, Y, and Z, they know I'm not doing it just to be a dick. And I'm doing it because, hey, guess what? I was the person in your shoes. I've gone and done everything that I'm asking you to do. That's the kind of, so trust is a big factor in a lot of this also. So safety, yeah, you can make the truck safer, but guess what? That bumps up the cost. The technology is great, but guess what? You're leaving out, you're not focusing on the one thing that can prevent a lot of accidents. And that's the driver. And I remember what was it? 2009. I almost got fired for this. 2009. I'm driving in Portland. My last stop. Picked it up, going to the dump, and there's construction on the road, and I'm stopped at a red light. I got a car in front of me, and the lane to my right is closing, and some jackass just comes and zooms up, and they're going to try to cut over, right? The car in front of me, right? Well, light turns green, the car in front of me starts going, and I'm like, screw this guy. Like, we all waited for this light. And so I start rolling forward. Well, the car in the right lane, whose lane is ending, jumps in front of and cuts off the car in front of me. And I'm already rolling. And I end up, basically love tapping the car in front of me. No damage happened, but my boss came out and I explained, like, yeah, I wasn't going to let this car in. And because of that, hey, you got to go drug test and whatnot. And, I'm almost fired because of that. Because but that was me being dumb and naive. Like you ask 40-year-old Zach, hey man, it's not worth it. Like, you're in no hurry to get anywhere, right? It's like it's noon. What are you in a rush about? Just let that car in, right? Versus 24-year-old Zach, it's all like, you're like, fuck this dude, blah blah blah. It's like, you're just angry all the time. So, but the education is like, the hurry up and get it done aspect of the industry. Yeah, there is some aspect of it, but a lot of it, one thing that isn't in this but should be taken into account is weather, right? So, like, there's a lot of things, and I think it needs to start from the top down, but there also needs to be, you know, we need to make sure that the companies need to make sure that the drivers that they're putting out on the road are safe, and they have the right mindset going out there of like, hey, you know, you're part of this family. You're not just a number. You're not just a union worker. Like, hey, we value you. You're out there doing a job. You're making us money. We're paying you for this. To do this for us. We need to make sure that we are as safe as we can be across the board. Granted, there are always dipshits out there that are gonna make our lives a living hell. Like, some of it we control, some of it we can't control. That's why they call it an accident. So, I don't know. That's my take, and I'll leave it up to you guys to give me your thoughts and